It's an honor to speak with you all today. Mahalo again for taking the time to learn more about the Alzheimer's Association. Now, I volunteer in memory of my parents. My dad had Alzheimer's and my mom was his primary caregiver. Alzheimer's disease robbed my father of his memory, his ability to walk and talk, and also the ability to communicate with my mom and even with my son and my daughter. My family was really in a state of shock when my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, as we knew something was wrong, but did not know anything about this disease. My mom was devastated, and we were forced to take a crash course on the disease so that we could understand what was happening, what to expect next, and how to emotionally support my mom. The unknown and uncertainty led to my leaving my 20-year full-time career in real estate. My dad has since passed away from Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, this disease is not done with my family, as in the last year, 2 uncles also passed away from Alzheimer's. And I still have a 97-year-old uncle who is living with Alzheimer's right now. If there's a blessing in disguise, it may be that Alzheimer's led me to a major career change, and I've had jobs advocating for kapuna and increasing awareness of Alzheimer's. I'm motivated by the need to increase awareness of the disease. At my dad's funeral, some of his friends approached me and told me they didn't even know that he had Alzheimer's. And I've attended funerals recently, which are celebrations of lives, but there is no mention of Alzheimer's, even if it was the last 4 to 8 years of that loved one's life. Make no mistake, there is still a major stigma associated with Alzheimer's. People just don't want to talk about Alzheimer's. It's almost as if they're afraid that by talking about it, that they're going to catch the disease. It is this fear of the disease that causes some people to joke about the disease as a way of coping with the fear. Now, folks don't joke about cancer, don't joke about heart disease or diabetes, and that should be the case with Alzheimer's as well too. I think there is still shame to tell friends that your spouse has Alzheimer's. This stigma is why families are afraid to even seek help and mention the disease. Excuse me. The stigma is the reason spouses suffer in silence and convince themselves that it's what happens when you get old. So that's why I volunteer and I'm speaking to you today. It's my way to raise awareness and hope for all the families impacted by the disease. Today's program is for anyone who wants to learn more about Alzheimer's and other dementias. You're going to hear from experts and get perspectives from people living with the disease and their caregivers. We also give this presentation you'll be hearing today to other community organizations and businesses. So if you'd like us to make this presentation to your organization, please let us know. Now today, we're going to take a top-level look at Alzheimer's and dementia to give you a broad understanding. My hope is that by the end of this morning's program, that you're going to be able to compare and understand Alzheimer's and dementia, recognize how Alzheimer's disease affects the brain, be able to list the risk factors of the disease, to be able to identify the 3 stages of the disease, recognize current FDA-approved treatments that can address some of the symptoms of the disease, describe how scientists are working to advance research to find the cure, and also to understand and be able to list some of the resources that the Alzheimer's Association can offer. Now, Alzheimer's, it's a global crisis, and you're likely hearing more and more about it in your personal lives, on the news, and in social media. What I'd like to do first is to really test your knowledge a little bit. I'm gonna ask a question here. Approximately how many Americans are currently living with Alzheimer's in the US? Is it over 3 million, 6 million, 8 million, or 11 million? The correct answer is more than 6 million Americans. Barring the development of medical breakthroughs to prevent, slow, or cure Alzheimer's disease, this number is projected to reach nearly 13 million by 2050. Worldwide, an estimated 50 million people are currently living with Alzheimer's disease. To give you perspective, there's in Hawaii, we estimate about 29,000 people with Alzheimer's, and we expect that to grow to about 35,000 in just about 2 years. One more question here. About how many Americans provide unpaid care for individuals living with Alzheimer's or other dementias? Is it about 8 million, 11 million, 14 million, or 18 million? Currently, there's more than 11 million Americans providing unpaid care for people living with Alzheimer's or another dementia. Now, Alzheimer's impacts caregivers both at home and at work. More than 80% of care provided at home is delivered by family members, friends, or unpaid family caregivers. Over half of the employed caregivers report having to go into work late, take time off during the middle of the day, or quit altogether due to caregiver demands. Now, these caregivers provide approximately 15.3 billion hours, that's with a B, billion hours of care last year, valued at over $257 billion. Now, so you can see this disease takes, and you probably know, take a personal impact on individuals facing it, as well as very much a financial one. Let's learn just a few more facts here. Now, you're going to hear the terms Alzheimer's and dementia used interchangeably. They are related, but they are different. We're next going to go over and discuss both Alzheimer's and dementia and how they're related. Before we begin, let's take a moment to again test your knowledge about Alzheimer's disease. It's a true or false question. True or false, is Alzheimer's a normal part of the aging process? This is false. Alzheimer's disease is more than memory loss. It's a progressive and a fatal disease that kills nerve cells and tissue in the brain, affecting an individual's ability to think, to plan, and ultimately to function. One more question here. True or false? People younger than age 65 can develop Alzheimer's. This is true. While most individuals living with the disease are older adults, people younger than 65 can also develop Alzheimer's. This form of the disease is known as younger onset Alzheimer's. Sometimes it's called early onset. In some cases, people develop the disease in their 40s or their 50s. Let's watch a video from one of our experts, Dr. Heather Snyder, who explains the difference between, or explains how Alzheimer's and dementia are related.
Dementia is the umbrella term for an individual's changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. There are many possible causes of dementia, and Alzheimer's is the most common cause. Other causes of dementia are vascular dementia, which is marked by changes in the blood flow in the blood vessels in the brain. Dementia with Lewy bodies, identified by specific brain changes throughout the brain that include the buildup of a protein known as alpha-synuclein. And frontal temporal dementia, which is marked by brain cell loss in the front sections of the brain or the frontal lobe. Each type of dementia may have distinct characteristics to cause specific behaviors in the individual, but there is also some overlap in behaviors among the types of dementia.
So there's many causes of dementia other than Alzheimer's. However, about 60 to 80% of all dementia cases are caused by Alzheimer's disease. There's numerous types of dementia. Each type has different causes and symptoms. As discussed, because of this, the many causes, a diagnosis of dementia requires further testing to identify the specific disease or condition which are causing the symptoms. It's important to seek an accurate and an early diagnosis. Let's hear from a care partner about the importance of knowing her husband's diagnosis.
Certainly, having the diagnosis of Lewy body was helpful in our planning because we began to understand where this was coming from in the brain, where otherwise we would not have known. Like we knew something was happening, but what was it? To give it a label actually helped, although it was a big umbrella. It explains some of the characteristics and symptoms that we were experiencing and seeing.
There's great value in that early and accurate diagnosis, so you know what you are facing and better understand what to expect. I wanted to briefly let you know about some promising news that you might have heard in the last in the last couple of years. Many of you may have heard that in June of 2021, the FDA approved a drug called Aduhelm for the treatment of Alzheimer's disease. It's the first FDA-approved drug that delays the decline due to the disease. This means that individuals may have more time with each other, have sustained independence, and hold on to memories longer. This drug, however, is not readily available, so there continues to be great value in seeking an accurate diagnosis so you know what you're facing and better know what to expect. I'll talk more about this later in my presentation. So again, dementia, it's a general term for a collection of symptoms that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. Alzheimer's, it's the most common cause of dementia. Now, Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging. It's a progressive brain disease. Next, we're going to take a look at what goes on in the brain when Alzheimer's disease is present. As you well know, the brain is our most complex organ. It's also our most powerful, despite being so small in weight at about 3 pounds. Let's hear from one of our experts about how Alzheimer's affects the brain.
More than 100 years ago, Dr. Alice Alzheimer's described specific changes in the brain, what we call the formation of plaques and tangles. Now, Alzheimer's is a progressive brain disease that's marked by these key changes and is thought to impact memory, thinking, and behavior. The brain has 3 main parts: the cerebrum, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Each one plays a role in how the body functions. The cerebrum fills up most of your skull. It is part of the brain most involved in remembering, problem solving, thinking, and even feelings. There are about 100 billion nerve cells or neurons throughout the brain that transmit messages in order for us to create memories, feelings, and thoughts. Alzheimer's disease causes nerve cells to die, which leads to the brain tissue loss, or what we call shrinkage, and causes loss of function and communication between cells. These changes can cause the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, such as memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, behavioral issues, and even at the end stages, problems with swallowing.
So Dr. Alzheimer's is the one that describes specific changes in the brain. And Alzheimer's causes nerve cells to die, which leads to shrinkage in the brain. Now, everyone is at risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. There are a few known risk factors that increase a person's risk of developing the disease. Let's see if you know which one is the most common. So what's the greatest known risk factor of Alzheimer's disease? Is it genetics? Is it family history? Or is it age? Well, as mentioned, they're all known risk factors. However, age is the greatest risk factor. Let's hear from one of our experts as she explains the most common risk factors.
Alzheimer's disease is marked by specific brain changes that result in the clinical changes in individual experiences. That is, changes in memory, thinking, or reasoning. And ultimately, Alzheimer's is fatal. The exact cause for these changes is unknown, but there are some hints as to what may contribute to an individual's risk. Age is the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's, and when we look at populations of people, we see an increased risk over the age of 65. However, Alzheimer's is not normal aging. Family history is also a known risk factor. Research has shown that those who have a parent or a sibling with Alzheimer's are more likely to develop the disease, and that risk increases if more than one family member has Alzheimer's. When we talk about the genes involved in Alzheimer's, there are two categories that could potentially be involved: risk genes and deterministic genes. Risk genes increases an individual's risk for developing the disease, but does not guarantee that they will develop Alzheimer's. Deterministic genes, which are rare for Alzheimer's, guarantee that the person will develop the disease.
I want to emphasize that although Alzheimer's is not a normal part of aging, age is the greatest known risk factor. Now, let's take a look at some populations who are at a higher risk of developing the disease. Hispanics, African Americans, and women are those at the highest risk. Researchers show that older Hispanics are about 1.5 times as likely as older whites to develop Alzheimer's and other dementias, while older African Americans are about twice as likely to develop the disease as older whites. Now, the reasons for these differences is not well understood, but scientists believe that higher rates of vascular disease in these groups may also put them at greater risk for developing Alzheimer's. Women are more likely than men to develop the disease. An estimated 3.8 million American women are living with the disease today. That's out of the total of 6 million people with the disease. We know that women live longer than men, making them more likely to develop the disease. However, living longer and lower death rates can only partially explain the difference. Scientists are exploring how genetic differences between men and women may impact the disease risk. So Alzheimer's involves the failure of nerve cells, the exact cause of which is still unknown. However, research has identified risk factors that increase the likelihood of developing Alzheimer's. Age, it's the greatest known risk factor for Alzheimer's. And individuals' risk for developing the disease increases at age 65. Family history is a known risk factor. Having a parent or a sibling with the disease increases an individual's risk. There's two types of genes associated with Alzheimer's: risk genes and deterministic genes. Hispanics, African Americans, and women are at an increased risk for developing the disease. So no two individuals experience symptoms and progression of Alzheimer's in the same way. Let's hear from another expert on why this is the case, as well as from some individuals describing what it's like to live in the early stages of the disease.
One of the things that impacts our brain is all the other things that can happen to us as we age. And we know that Alzheimer's, the most common risk factor for getting Alzheimer's disease is age. But we also have lots of other things that go wrong with us as we age. And so how those other health factors impact our brain can also impact how Alzheimer's presents in other people.
It's a different kind of forgetting. It really, really is. It's not just forgetting where I put my car keys. It's much deeper than that. And for example, I cannot read a book. I used to be a voracious reader because by the time I turn a page, I have forgotten what I had read. And if you're reading a novel, you have to know what transpired before in order for you to continue to read on. And so I can't read a novel, so I've even stopped trying.
Math, I can't do a simple tip anymore. You know, I sit there, I stare at it. It's crazy what numbers I can't deal with anymore. And in some ways, that's the disease to me. The other thing that I've increasingly been struggling with are words, which I've dealt with words my entire life. You know, as an avid reader, as a reporter, as a writer. I struggle with them now.
I'm like an overachiever, and when you're unable to deliver or you're not performing at the same pace that you once did before, that's frustrating. It's frustrating to not know where you place things. It's frustrating to not be able to explain to someone the problems that you're having. You can't articulate it in a way. It's frustrating to read something and you forgot what you read. It's frustrating to continuously have to change your password and you just changed it last week and you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again.
I think the thing that surprises me the most about my dementia is that it is progressive. And I'm finding that I'm forgetting more. And they do memory tests for me all the time at the doctor's. And so that becomes a little disconcerting at times, to see my cognitive impairment continue to decline. But again, I really have hope. I don't live really in the future. I can't live in the future. I can't worry about what the future is going to bring. I have to live for today.
Now, the individuals we just heard from are living in the early stage of the disease. Symptoms are going to worsen over time for everyone. However, people progress through the stages of Alzheimer's at different rates. On average, a person with Alzheimer's lives about 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but can live as long as 20 years. Now let's hear from Dr. Snyder, who explains the 3 general stages of Alzheimer's disease.
Alzheimer's affects everyone differently. As a result, it's difficult to place a person in a specific stage of the disease. However, there are 3 general stages that are commonly referred to as early, middle, and late stage Alzheimer's. In a medical context, you may hear these stages referred to as mild, moderate, and severe. In the early stage of Alzheimer's, an individual may be able to function independently. However, they may start noticing more frequent memory lapses. Friends and family may also begin to notice difficulties in the person, and a healthcare provider may be able to detect problems in memory or concentration by conducting a detailed medical interview. Middle stage Alzheimer's is typically the longest stage and can last for many years. Damage to the brain cells can make it difficult to express thoughts and perform routine tasks, and this can lead to increased feelings of frustration and anger. In the final stage of the disease, an individual loses the ability to hold a conversation, control their movements, or respond to the environment around them. Cognitive skills, that is, their memory, thinking, and reasoning skills, continue to decline, and this can lead to personality changes and need for round-the-clock care.
So it's important to remember that the stages of Alzheimer's are general, and because each person living with the disease has their own unique experience, we can't always neatly place an individual into one specific stage. In fact, some people may exhibit symptoms that overlap these stages. However, the stages do allow you to gain a general understanding of the progression of the disease. As it progresses, the individual's behaviors will change, as does the role of a caregiver. These stages can help caregivers prepare for what to expect and understand how best to respond. The three stages, excuse me, early, middle, and late, are sometimes referred to as mild, moderate, and severe from a medical standpoint. Now, again, no two individuals experience the symptoms and progression of the disease the same way. While the symptoms are going to worsen over time, people progress through the stages at different rates as their abilities change. Let's start this next section by seeing what you already know about treatments available for Alzheimer's. Now, a true or false question. Current drugs help address symptoms, but do not treat the underlying cause of the disease. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is a drug now available to slow down the progression of Alzheimer's disease. So the answer is true in that Aduhelm that I spoke about was approved by the FDA in June of 2021. The drug potentially slows the progression of the disease by removing amyloid plaque from the brain versus previous drugs that only address symptoms of the disease. Now, it's not a cure, but it may give people more time to actively participate in daily life and also hold on longer to their independence and memory. However, it does not restore memories or cognitive function. Some of the key things that I'd like you to know is that the drug is more likely to help people in the early stages of the disease before there's irreversible brain damage. The drug is given by IV every 4 weeks. There can be side effects, including brain swelling, headaches, brain bleeds, and also falls. It's been reported, and you might have seen it in the media, that the drug could cost about $28,000 a year. The latest is that Medicare announced earlier this year that it would restrict coverage to patients who are in approved clinical trials only. This means that really only a small number of patients would be able to use the drug. The Alzheimer's Association disagrees with the limiting of the access to this drug. Families are going to need to talk with their doctor about the risk and the cost of the drug. However, in any event, Aduhelm is just the beginning and may not be the answer for everyone. However, it's hopefully the first of more drugs and better treatments It provides promise and hope for the future. In the near term, there are several drugs available that address symptoms of the disease. Let's hear from Dr. Hendricks about them.
There are currently several drugs that are FDA approved to treat the cognitive symptoms associated with Alzheimer's disease. They treat the symptoms, but they don't treat the underlying cause. So eventually people will progress, but they do treat some of the symptoms and help people for a time. So the first class of drugs are cholinesterase inhibitors. These drugs work to prevent the breakdown of acetylcholine, which is a chemical messenger found in the brain that's associated with learning and memory. There are 3 FDA-approved drugs that are in this class of drugs. There's Aricept, there's Exelon, and there's Razidine. There's another class of drugs that modulates glutamate, which is another chemical messenger in the brain that's associated with learning and memory. And this drug is called Namenda. And then there's a final class, which is actually a combination of cholinesterase inhibitors and glutamate modulator, and this is called Namzaric.
Okay, because everyone experiences Alzheimer's differently, these treatments are going to work in varying degrees and are not effective for everyone. An accurate diagnosis is important to ensure that the proper treatment is prescribed. So again, the 3 types of drugs approved to help manage the symptoms associated with the disease: cholinesterase inhibitors, glutamate modulators, and combination of the 2. These treatments only address some symptoms in some people. They do not treat the underlying cause of the disease. Now, in the last decade, scientists have made some enormous strides in understanding how Alzheimer's affects the brain. Many recent insights point toward promising new strategies for treatment, prevention, and diagnosis.
This is an incredibly exciting time in Alzheimer's and dementia research. The advancements that we've made in the last decade to understand the disease as a continuum, meaning that the biological changes are starting a decade or more before someone is experiencing the changes in the memory and thinking. This sets the stage for possible prevention. The idea that when we have the tools to identify those individuals at the earliest time point, and when we have the interventions to target individuals at that earliest time point, we can intervene to stop or slow the progression of the disease before an individual loses their memories.
I'm excited about what we're learning these days regarding lifestyle. One of those things that we've seen in the past of things like exercise and nutrition have now started to gain more momentum to indicate to us that it can change your ability to slow cognitive decline. That is really the first stages of Alzheimer's disease. This may include things like social engagement, mental cognitive training. It can be things such as exercise. It can be nutrition. All those things are now starting to point that they will lower your risk for Alzheimer's disease.
A lot of hope does come from the Alzheimer's Association, all the research that is being done. Even though there is not a cure today for the disease, I know in my heart there is going to be a cure one day, and I know we're getting closer for that cure. Because even if you fail in a research study, you learn from that failure in the research study. That failure always brings progression.
It's nice to see the association spearheading in many ways the emphasis on getting the money at the federal level and at the private sector to get the research done so that someday there will be an effective treatment, hopefully cure, hopefully prevention.
So we're optimistic and very hopeful that we're headed in the right direction with Alzheimer's research. One of the key ways to keep research moving in this direction is through clinical studies. Scientists are looking for new ways to treat Alzheimer's, and there are many drugs currently in that research pipeline. Recruiting and retaining these clinical trial participants is now the greatest obstacle, other than funding, to developing the next generation of Alzheimer's treatments. Let's again hear from some experts about the importance of these clinical studies for the future of Alzheimer's treatments.
It's more important than ever for people to participate in clinical studies. The fact is, right now, we don't have an effective treatment to stop Alzheimer's disease. And if we don't have people participating in clinical trials, we never will. And so participating in a clinical study is one way that everyone can get involved in a very direct way in the fight against Alzheimer's disease. And for people who currently have dementia or Alzheimer's disease, there are some additional benefits. You get access to very close medical care. You also may be among the first people to have access to the treatments that will eventually prove to work.
Sometimes you hear the phrase, it's a failed trial. That means that it didn't hit the endpoint, it didn't achieve an FDA-approved drug. But I would say as a scientist, the only failed trial is one that doesn't give you valuable information. And if the trial is well designed, if it is a good scientific experiment, you get extremely valuable data so that you can plan the next trial and do the next study even better than the last one. And it gets you that much closer to that FDA-approved drug, to that effective treatment, and maybe someday even a cure.
So you don't have to be a scientist. Everyone can help advance Alzheimer's research. It's really critical that people of different races and ethnic backgrounds participate in the clinical research. Because they are at an increased risk of developing the disease, it's important that researchers are able to study large groups of these individuals to better understand the disease and their risk levels. Let's take a look at an Alzheimer's Association service that can help people find these studies.
Currently, more than 5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's. By participating in clinical research, you can move us toward methods of treatment and prevention for all those affected by this devastating disease. Alzheimer's Association Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for those with dementia, caregivers, and healthy volunteers. To start, simply create a confidential user profile and receive a list of studies that may be a match for you. Don't just hope for a cure, help us find one.
Scientists have increased their understanding of Alzheimer's significantly over the last several years. People living with the disease, the caregivers, and the healthy individuals without dementia are needed to participate in these clinical studies in order to find methods of prevention, treatment, and ultimately a cure. Both drug and non-drug studies are taking place across the country and online. Clinical studies may provide participants with cutting-edge treatments and also additional medical care. Trial Match is a free clinical studies matching service for people interested in participating in Alzheimer's research. Alzheimer's is difficult. However, no one has to face the disease alone. Let's learn a little more about the Alzheimer's Association and how we help individuals and families across the country. So the Alzheimer's Association is all across the US and on every major island in Hawaii. And we provide direct service as well as virtual programs in the last 2 years to individuals and families facing the disease. We lead the way to end Alzheimer's and all other dementia. We do it by accelerating global research, driving risk reduction and early detection, and maximizing quality care and support. Our vision is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. The association is available wherever and whenever you need reliable information and support. We have 3 key resources that can connect you to the information and support. They include, one is our 24/7 helpline. You can call 800-272-3900 anytime, day or night, to receive information and support. It provides access to highly trained and knowledgeable staff who can help with education, decision-making support, crisis assistance, and resource identification. There's clinicians who are well-trained and knowledgeable, available around the clock to provide in-depth care consultations. And help is available in more than 200 languages. We also have online help through our website, alz.org. Often it's the first step for individuals following a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia. It includes sections specifically for people living with the disease and for caregivers. And then we also have in alz.org/CRF. It's an Alzheimer's Association and AARP Community Resource Finder. It provides a wealth of community-based resources available in your area, including long-term care, community-based services, where our local offices are. We have staff on every island, and they're offering our programs and support services. Visit alz.org/CRF. Now that we've taken a basic look at Alzheimer's and what resources are available, what can you do to take action? One is that we do need volunteers. Whether you can spare a few hours a week or maybe a more significant time commitment, consider volunteering for the association. Numerous opportunities are available, including becoming a community educator. This is what I'm doing right now, or joining your local walk planning committee. You visit alz.org/volunteer to volunteer. We also have advocacy, where you can become an association advocate and speak out on a state level or on a federal level on behalf of the needs and rights of those facing Alzheimer's disease. You can visit alzimpact.org. And we talked about Trial Match. Everyone can help advance Alzheimer's research by participating in clinical trials. Get started with the Alzheimer's Association Trial Match. It's free, easy to use clinical studies matching service. Visit alz.org/trial match. The Walk to End Alzheimer's. Many of you might have heard about this. Many of you might have participated in this. It's our signature fundraising event. It's going to be held in November this year at Magic Island. It's also held in the coming months on every other island as well, too. You can form or join a team for the Alzheimer's Association Walk to End Alzheimer's. It raises critical funds and increases awareness. This fundraiser is the largest fundraiser for Alzheimer's care support and research. You can get more information at alz.org/walk. We also have what's we sometimes call a DIY type of fundraiser, the longest day. It's the day with the most light. It's the summer solstice, typically June 20th or June 21st. We just had it. We have it annually. We raise funds and awareness for care, support, and research efforts of the association through an activity, fundraising through an activity of your own choice. So in closing, I hope that today's presentation gives you a better understanding of the effect of Alzheimer's, excuse me, on the brain, risk factors, stages of the disease, current treatment, and resources available through the Alzheimer's Association Hawaii. For those with friends or family affected by Alzheimer's, please remember that we're here to help. We have staff on Oahu, Hawaii Island, Maui, and Kauai. The easiest way to get help is to call the number on the screen, 800-272-3900, or go to our website, alz.org. Mahalo for your attention and time today. Now I want to turn it back to Debbie, and also Tanya from Alzheimer's is also on the call today. Just in time because I'm losing my voice.
Thanks, Steve. That was a great presentation. I know there was a question that came through about the drug. So Ivy, who's also from Alzheimer's Association, she posted a link that has more information on the drug if anybody is interested. It's in the chat. I guess with that, we'll open up to questions. We have Tanya here who is available to answer any questions on our topic today.
Hi guys, I'm on Oahu, and we have all, like Steve said earlier, we have folks on all other islands too. I don't know if this is all Oahu or if we have other folks on other islands, but we are everywhere, and we are here to help you. So does anybody have any questions? If you have questions you don't really feel comfortable maybe asking in front of everyone, you can email me if you want. Let me put my email in the chat. Sorry, it's a long email. And I'm a slow typer, so.
Well, Tanya, you have to change the settings to attendees. I think you just sent it to the panelists.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't know if I'm able to do that.
I can copy and paste it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. For some reason, it's not letting me do it.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So the website that Ivy posted, you can find so much information there. It's a little overwhelming. So if you do need help, feel free to call or to email me, and I'll help you kind of navigate. The main thing is we're here to help, and we have that 1-800 number that you can call, and it's 24/7. So 3 o'clock in the morning, you're struggling. It's even those type of calls if it's a crisis kind of thing. So, looks like we have a question. I'm looking for suggestions on how to respond to loved ones when they ask unusual questions. Very, very common, right? Laura Lee, thank you for asking that question. So I'm sure those questions that to you, they're unusual, but to the person that has dementia asking you them, it's their reality. So they believe 100%, and probably there's no convincing them otherwise, right? And you've probably tried, I know I have. But the key is to enter into their reality and kind of just go along with that. And that will help for a more peaceful conversation with you and the person that has dementia, instead of trying to convince them of whatever it is that's in our reality, not true. It just helps the overall situation where with you and with the person. It also helps the person not feel embarrassed or argumentative. And if that's not going to hurt them, if it's a safety concern, we definitely want to kind of get that in check. But with it, if it's just general questions that are just like you said, they ask unusual questions, and I can think of so many in my experience. I've worked in the nursing home industry before, so I hear you. That's very common, and I hope that answers your question, Laura. And so it looks like we have another question. Are there webinars like this that we could watch as a family? Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. We would love, Mary, to get you some more information. And we do have specific times that we give our webinars and our meetings, our education programs. We have a calendar that we can send to you that has all different islands too. So, and these are virtual. Now we are in the process of going in person, which is really scary for some of us, but that's available too. But for the convenience of if you're on another island, or if your family needs to kind of get together at the same time, we have this virtual option too. We also are planning on trying to do the virtual at the same time as we do it in person. So there's a lot of that we're planning on. So Mary, if I can maybe get your email from Debbie, then I'll be glad to send you some upcoming programs. And I mean, everyone, if you're interested, and I'm sure you are interested in what we have to offer. I know that Debbie said that there was a high amount of people attending here. So it's great to know that you have questions and you're wanting to know more. And we're just so glad that you guys are here and that you're able to meet us virtually. And we have so many more resources for you.
And just to give you an idea in terms of the other types of programs, one that's also very popular is the 10 Warning Signs of Alzheimer's, and a newer program that we just started managing money as it relates to the legal and financial aspects.
And I know, Mary, you said on our father and how to deal with him. And I know that you're probably talking about maybe his dementia and how he behaves at time to time. Maybe he gets argumentative. Maybe it's just kind of hard to understand what he's trying to tell you. So we have another program that helps with understanding Alzheimer's and dementia-related behavior. But even with that, you can give us a call and we can help you understand what kind of maybe tips and tricks. Along with that, Mary, we also have support groups, and in our support groups are other people, other caregivers that are going through what you're going through and getting tips and just getting that validation from them, and instead of just talking to just a general person that may not understand. So those are some things too that would be very helpful. And I can also send Debbie a list of our support groups that are island-wide. We have right now all virtual, but we're planning maybe soon, hopefully, to go into in person, whatever, we're trying to figure out what people want. I hope that answers your question, Mary. Like I said, we are here to help, and there's a lot of information on that website, and it can be kind of overwhelming, especially if you're caregiving and you just kind of reached your limit, right? And so that's why we're here too, to help you, guide you through that website. So yes, entering in there to reality and instead of instead of trying to drag it, because you're not going to win if you try to convince them. And the only way that you really can make things a little better and less stressful and traumatic. Really, sometimes it can be traumatic if you're talking to someone with Alzheimer's. Maybe maybe their loved one maybe their husband or wife has passed away, and that continual reminder that they've passed away, and that's a very, very, very common one, can be very traumatic for them. So when I was working in the nursing homes, I was a social worker, and so I worked with families a lot. And that was a big thing, was where's my husband, and he had passed away 20 years ago, and maybe it's entering into the reality. Well, maybe in her mind she thinks he's not coming home from work yet, so well, he'll be back soon, and he went to work, and he'll be back soon. And I know that we've been taught not to lie, right? but this is one of those things where there's no manipulation on your part. You're not trying to hurt them. You're actually trying to give peace to the situation.